All right, boys and girls, little people. It's time for chapter 17 of Mr. Popper's Penguins.
Mr. G's feeling a little better.
I am feeling a little better because I passed a little small stone. Yay! Big accomplishment for Mr. D. Trust me, you'll be thinking about these times when you get older, and you're going to be remembering the story when Mr. D had kidney stones the year you were quarantined and couldn't go to school. But I definitely feel a little better, and now I'm happy because this is the first time I was able to pass at least one of the stones. I don't know how many stones are, they didn't tell me, but at least something like a rock formation was able to be found. So hopefully that helps, and I'm in the process of getting better. Just a reminder for today, make sure that you do your iReady minutes, do your Spelling City assignment, and do your writing as well. So you're working on your interesting facts paragraph. So anything that you found interesting about your animal that didn't really fit anywhere else in your research report. Maybe you found out that your animal is the most famous animal in all the zoos. That could be an interesting fact that you put in your paragraph. Maybe you found out that your animal is being considered for extinction and their race is threatened. Then we have to help them to survive in the wild. That could be an interesting fact. Maybe you found out that one of the animals that you're researching was found at a place that you visited before. Maybe you can put that as an interesting fact. So any other interesting facts that you found out about your animal, that is where you're writing it in that paragraph today. And then going forward, Thursday and Friday. Thursday, we're going to work on a conclusion paragraph. Friday, our works cited page. And then you guys are done, hopefully, your animal research. And then next week, we can go into narrative writing. We're going to start with a personal narrative and then fictional narrative. And then that'll be our writing for the rest of the year. All right. And we're also going to do a lot of poetry in May as well, because poetry, I usually have a whole unit of poetry in May. So we're going to have fun. And also poetry corresponds well with Mother's Day as well. So we're going to kind of focus on some poems that you can write about your mom as well. So that's going to be a fun little activity that we're going to do. I have to remember all the things that I have in the classroom. That's the bad thing, is I have a ton of things in my classroom that we use resource-wise. I'm going to have to try and find some more things that I can use online instead. I know we had some problems with your Google slide this morning for your book report. It didn't work right the first time. I even tried changing the assignment, and that didn't work. So then I just totally deleted the whole assignment and then redid the whole assignment, and it should be set up. I haven't had any complaints that it wasn't working since like around, 10 o'clock or so. So hopefully it's just one of those things where technology sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. This time it was my fault. I didn't have students make a copy for every student. I didn't click that little part. But I did it, and now it should be fine. I am going to change that up too. We're not always going to do the book report slide. We're going to probably throw some other things in there as well. Probably starting next week, we're going to have a different Google slide for you to fill out. All right. Remember, tomorrow is makeup day, so I want you to get caught up on any assignments that you did not get to do on Monday or Tuesday. Also, I would love for you guys to make a sign for Sophia, who's in the hospital right now in CHOP because her birthday's on Thursday. So I want you to see if you can make a sign saying something like "Get well, Sophia," or "We're thinking about you, Sophia," or "Happy birthday, Sophia," "Get better soon." And then we're going to sing her happy birthday on Thursday. I'm going to record all that and your signs and the birthday song, and I'm going to send it to her. So hopefully we can get that done as well. So today or tomorrow, make sure that you try and work on your Sophia sign. Okay. All right. Chapter 17, Mr. Popper's Penguins, it's called Fame. So in chapter 16, we learned that the Penguins were very successful in their acts. All the audience loved their performance, and they're making a lot of money. So they went on the road, and then they're starting their shows. And it looks like Their first show, I think, was in Seattle, and it was very successful. So, chapter 17 is called Fame. So, let's see how they do with all these famous penguins, the poppers dealing with all these famous penguins and them being successful. Because it's one thing to become successful in life, it's another thing to be able to handle all that success. Sometimes people fail at succeeding. So, let's see if they handle this the right way. The bird soon became so famous that whenever it was known that the popper performing penguins were to appear at any theater, the crowds would stand in line for half a mile down the street, waiting their turn to buy tickets. The other actors on the program were not always so pleased, however. Once in Minneapolis, a celebrated lady opera singer got very much annoyed when she heard that the popper penguins were to appear on the same program. In fact, she refused to go on stage unless the penguins were put away. So the stagehands helped Mr. and Mrs. Popper and the children get the birds off the stage and downstairs to a basement under the stage, while the manager guarded the stage entrance to make sure that the penguins did not get past. Down in the basement, the birds soon discovered another little flight of steps going up, and in another minute the audience was shrieking with laughter as the penguins' heads suddenly appeared one by one in the orchestra pit, where the musicians were playing. The musicians kept on playing, and the lady on the stage, when she saw the penguins, sang all the louder to show how angry she was. The audience was laughing so hard that nobody could hear the words of her song. Mr. Popper, who had followed the penguins up the stairs, stopped when he saw that it led to the orchestra pit. "I don't think I'm supposed to go up there with the musicians," he told Mrs. Popper. "The penguins did," said Mrs. Popper. "Papa, you better get them off before they start biting the pegs and strings off the fiddles," said Bill. "Oh dear, I just don't know what to do," said Mr. Popper, sitting down helplessly on the top steps. "Then I will catch the penguins," said Mrs. Popper, climbing up past him, with Janie and Bill following. When they saw Mr. Popper coming after them, the penguins felt very guilty because they knew they did not belong there. So they jumped up on stage, ran over the footlights, and hid under the singing lady's blue skirts. That stopped the singing entirely, except for one high, shrill note that had not been written in the music. Oh my goodness. The birds loved the bright lights of the theater and the great laughing audiences and all the traveling. There was always something new to see. From Stillwater out to the Pacific coast they traveled. It was a long way out now to the little house at 432 Proudfoot Avenue, where the Poppers had to worry about whether their money would hold out until spring. And every week they got a check for $5,000. When they were not actually playing in some theater or traveling on trains between cities, their life was spent in the larger hotels. Now and then a startled hotel keeper would object to having the birds register here. "Why, we don't even allow lapdogs in this hotel," he would say. "Yes, but do you have any rule against penguins?" Mr. Popper would ask. Then the hotel keeper would have to admit that there was no rule at all about penguins, and of course, when he saw how neat the penguins were and how other guests came to his hotel in the hope of seeing them, he was very glad to have them. You might think that a large hotel would offer a great many opportunities for mischief to a lot of penguins, but they behaved very well, and on the whole, never doing anything worse than riding up and down too often in the elevators and occasionally biting the brass buttons off some bellboy's uniform. $5,000 a week may sound like a great deal of money, and yet the Poppers were far from rich. It was quite expensive to live in grand hotels and travel about town in taxicabs. Mr. Popper often thought about how the penguins could just as well have walked back and forth between hotels and theaters, but every one of their walks looked so much like a parade that it always tied up traffic. So Mr. Popper, who never liked to be a nuisance to anyone, always took taxis instead. It was expensive to have huge cakes of ice brought up to their hotel rooms to cool the penguins. The bills in the fine restaurants where the Poppers often took their meals were often dreadfully high. Fortunately, however, the penguins' food had stopped being an expense to them. On the road, they had to give up having tank cars of live fish shipped to them because it was so hard to get the deliveries on time. So they went back to feeding the birds on canned shrimps. This cost them absolutely nothing, for Mr. Popper had written a testimonial saying, "Popper's performing penguins thrive on Owen's oceanic shrimp." This statement, with a picture of the 12 penguins, was printed in all the leading magazines, and the Owens Oceanic Shrimp Company gave Mr. Popper an order that was good for free cans of shrimps at any grocery store anywhere in the country. Several other companies, such as the Great Western Spinach Growers Association and the Energetic Breakfast Oats Company, wanted him to recommend their product too, and offered him large sums of cash. But the penguins simply refused to eat spinach or oats, and Mr. Popper was too honest to say that they would, even though he knew the money would come in handy. From the Pacific coast, they turned east again to cross the continent. They had time enough on this brief tour to touch only the larger cities. After Minneapolis, they played Milwaukee, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Philadelphia. Wherever they went, their reputation traveled ahead of them. When, early in April, they reached Boston, huge crowds awaited them in the hallway in the railway station. Up to now, it had not been too difficult to keep the penguins comfortable, but a warm spring was blowing across Boston Common, and at the hotel, Mr. Popper had to have the ice brought up to his rooms in 1,000-pound cakes. He was glad that the 10-week contract was almost up, and that the next week, when his birds were to appear in New York, was the last. Already, Mr. Greenbaum was writing about a new contract. Mr. Popper was beginning to think, however, that he had better be getting back to Stillwater, for the penguins were growing irritable. So, chapter 18 is called April Winds. So, my prediction for chapter 18 is we're going to learn about what happens in the spring, in April. And we already know it's getting warmer out, so that's not a good sign for the penguins. And we already know that some of the penguins are getting irritable, so that means they're getting probably bored with life and they're kind of getting cranky. So maybe, I don't know, we'll see what happens. It sounds like it was a successful road trip for the penguins. They made a lot of money. They have sponsorships now, so they make money off of advertising. But if the penguins are cranky, we're going to have a problem. So we'll see in chapter 18 what happens when it's called April Winds. All right, guys. It's 1:17. The planes are flying over New York, and then I think they're going to Trenton and Philadelphia at around 2 o'clock. So if you go outside and look west, you should be able to at least hear the planes. I don't know if you're going to be able to see them from where we are, but I definitely know you're probably going to hear them. So we're going to go outside in a little bit. It looks like it's a pretty nice day. I'm going to do some walking because I'm hoping that's going to break up my stones a little bit and help me. I'm going to drink some more water. And hopefully you guys have a nice day. And tomorrow, make sure you just complete any work that you have not completed. We will have a morning meeting tomorrow. And just to give you some reminders and get you organized for those of you that need some motivation to finish your assignments, I'm making a list of who's finishing what. So I will share that list with you tomorrow during morning meeting. And then tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I'm holding a small group for main idea instruction. So we're going to do a Scholastic News article. We're going to read it together. I'm going to kind of go through how I find main idea. And then I'm going to have you guys practice on a ReadWorks article of what the main idea is. So we're going to continue working, and I'm going to kind of guide you through the Scholastic lesson, and then I'm going to have you practice on your own and see how well you do. So there's probably, 15 of you at least that are going to be in the small group tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Check your email and make sure that you accept the link. And then I'll see you twice tomorrow, morning meeting, and then at 1 o'clock for those of you that are doing extra main idea practice tomorrow. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye.